my channel. Hey yo, listen up, yeah. Hey yo, the wireless woman.
You in charge of the girls, right?
I am in charge of the girls.
Are you in charge of the girls?
I am in charge of the girls.
Okay.
All right. Hey yo, Wi-Fi's. Welcome back to yet another underground transmission of the wireless woman. Go ahead and do me that favor on your way in and like this video. Why? Because when you like it, well, I love it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And click the bell for notifications of when I go live and when I upload new content. So today we're going to be talking about the crisis with young men. The issue of not being able to support a family and children has wide economic ramifications. This is not just a Black problem. I have heard Asian men, I have heard tons of white men expressing their dismay at their dating prospects simply because they are not economically able to keep up, not with women, but with the economic changes. Black people historically have seen themselves be phased out of industry when we went from an agricultural society where Black bodies were the currency, the literal currency of the economy in the South, to a more industrial revolution where these unions came in and said, okay, listen, you niggers, get back out there in that field and keep picking that cotton. All right, we got this. We have consistently been behind the developments in tech, developments in education, developments in these different industries. Black people have historically been locked out of a lot of progress, but we've gotten to a place in history where Black people aren't the only people feeling that same lag, especially when it comes to men. Men are being left behind in the workforce not because of women, but because of technological advances, AI, all of these different new industries that call for the type of work that women excel at, the type of work that is for a more specialized, skilled type of labor. Now, there are still skilled tradesmen. Our society will always need that. We'll always need plumbers. We'll always need electricians, brick masons, truck drivers. These industries are not going away. They cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. However, we are a more educated population. We are a more enlightened population. People are able to go to college online, virtually. We can work remotely. So this leaves a lot of room for a new type of employee, a new type of worker. And many men are being left behind in this struggle for scarce resources, and they are still actively competing against each other for those resources. My issue is how Black people are coming to the table with these outdated, antiquated ways of approaching and solving problems. We are not Republicans in the 80s. It's not going to be a top down, trickle down economy that is eventually going to come in and sweep up women and children and elderly and vulnerable populations. We're going to have to be all hands on deck in this community. And what's weird is I see that everywhere else. You know, I've had Hispanics come out to the house, and the woman will come out and she'll write up the invoices for how much, things are going to cost, ordering supplies, doing these things. The men come out on a truck in a drove and do the work. Yeah, I have seen painters, woman covered in paint and pregnant, man covered in paint. They came into, my establishment one day to take out $10,000, working side by side, husband and wife paint team. So why in our community are we still struggling with the concept that we may actually have to adapt to the environment that we refuse. We're refusing to be radical, revolutionary. We don't want to overthrow the system. You know, our love for it is so deep. Our loyalty to it is so permanent at this point. So if that's going to be the case, we have to adapt like everyone else is adapting. But this is the discussion that we're having around how we find the solutions to our cultural problems. Whereas if you go to the other side of the discussion, because trust me, they see it's a problem on their side as well. You know, their men are waiting longer and longer and getting older and older before they get married. And that is creating a shortfall in the amount of children that are being born. So we have these legislators, we have the Supreme Court jumping in and saying, all right, well, if we get rid of these women's ability to abort children, they'll have to start having them. Let's go ahead and get these abortion drugs off of the market. Let's go ahead and shut down these abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood and all of these different services and programs that give women access to these abortions, because what they're trying to do is make sure that they're replenishing the workforce at the, I forget what they call it, the rate. Okay, I forget what they call the rate. If I find it, I'll let you know. But there's a rate where they have to be replacing the workforce. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our workforce because of the baby boomer, this large, giant, huge generation that has retired. That's never really fully been at replenishment rate. But now we have all of these people that failed to return back to work following the pandemic. Like, it's a real problem. And as much as the economy is forcing a lot of people back into work of some sort, I don't know where they at. I'd love to know where the people who aren't working are so I can go and be there with them. But they understand that we're headed towards a huge problem in the future. It's something called foresight that they're actually trying to fix. So here in our community where we are, instead of dealing with our issues with foresight, we're using hindsight. Oh, let's make America great again. You know, back in the 50s and the 60s, women were at home cooking for their men. No, the fuck they weren't. Like, that has no basis in fact. And it's historically inaccurate, but even if it was, why would you use a metric like the 50s and the 60s and the 70s when we were actively at war and that was driving our economy as the basis for how we move forward in society? It's almost cyclical. It's almost admitting that you expect us to walk around in a circle. But I have seen a lot of analysis from the economists and sociologists that are on the other side of the spectrum, and the solutions that they're engineering look like this.
Women aren't interested in mating with men who aren't economically viable.
But why do we hate those women? Because when it was reversed, when it was more men graduating from college, you didn't see women lining up to hate them. And now those young men look at those women, those successful women, and they look at them with anger, with fury. Explain this one to me.
So you're absolutely right. And when these men get isolated, they are more prone to misogynistic content. They're less likely to believe in climate change. They're more prone to the conspiracy theory. The guy who attacked Salman Rushdie, that wasn't about a fatwa. That was about a young man living in his mother's basement. What I would argue, though, and I get pushback from feminists on this, that I want to be clear, no one has an obligation to service men who aren't having sex. What I would say, though, is unless we make an investment in young people such that they're economically viable and they can establish relationships, and part of that is discipline around not watching a lot of porn, getting a job, going to school, taking responsibility for your own life. But without a viable class of young men who are doing well, no group has fallen further faster in our nation than young men.
First of all, they have an actual realistic factual basis for how they want to address the problem. You can't even fix a problem that isn't even being addressed accurately. And as long as we're saddling women with the problems of Black society, women are going to continue to excel and outpace the men. We have to first be real about who our men are, where they are, how they got here, in order to even begin to strategize, hypothesize, theorize about how we fix it. As long as we're giving them participation trophies, we're going to stay in the same situations that we have been in. And our men are going to turn from being in the positions that they are to being dominators and abusers, because there is no other way to usurp power and to secure scarce resources from other people than by taking it. Anybody that was growing up in the ghetto, in the projects in the 80s and 90s know this. When people are poor, when people are hungry, they steal, they rob, they lie, they manipulate, they connive. And all of these narcissistic traits that we're seeing in our men is coming from that. Let's put the accountability where it actually really goes and begin to create some opportunities in reality to help our men go from a permanent underclass to being owners, innovators of industry. We got to be realistic first before we can really begin to solve these problems, because honestly, when I'm looking at both sides trying to socially engineer a solution to a problem that is a global issue, like we making it a Black issue because it's always been one. It's always been our issue to solve. But now that it's their issue, let's pay attention to how they solve it. When we had crack in the Black community in the 80s, oh, they sent everybody to jail. But now that they got methamphetamines and opioids all in their community, watch them. Look at them. See what they do. Look at the amount of compassion that they're showing for each other, the programs that they're enacting in order to be able to help each other. And I'm not romanticizing white culture by any stretch of the measure. But I am saying that if y'all do, since these are the people that you're looking up to, since these are the women who represent, your liberation, well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But as always, I am open to whatever solutions we can come to and we can find together. I'm open to having the dialogue and the discussions that will begin to create the education piece, that will begin to create liberation in the mind, so that we can actually begin to have liberation in our community.
See, that's liberation, and baby, I want it.
We have to free the mind in order to free these bodies, in order to address the problems and issues that we have as a society, as a Black culture. We have to plan. We have to strategize. We have to have we have to have a construct that we're working out of in order to act and be able to act in accordance and have solidarity and unity. I used to be all about activism until I started to realize that activity didn't equal progress. If we're actually going to progress as a people, then we need to have a manifesto. We need to have an understanding of how we move forward that's rooted not in our feelings, not in being reactionary to the situations that happen to us, but in an actual real plan and real solutions that we can all buy into and begin to create a framework to work out of. Nobody starts building a house without a blueprint. And we need the blueprint. And we need the type of people who are architects of a system, not just a whole bunch of labor. Not just a whole bunch of work, a bunch of ideals, a bunch of feelings. We need to be an educated, excellent group of people that can move forward You know, I fully believe that Black people have what we need to move forward with any plans that we actually come up with. I think where we're failing is in the planning, is in the planning section of being able to execute the well-being of our community. But tell me what you think. You know, I'm always open. I'm always open to amending my views. But if you see what I see and you feel as I feel,
But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek,
go ahead and drop that fire headphones emoji in the comments. I look forward to engaging with you there. But until the next transmission, y'all already know the drill. Go ahead and clock out for me.
The time to hesitate is through.